Hello, my friends. I'm so excited to be here. And I had two questions. And what's interesting is I'm guessing that your answers might be a little bit different than they would have been before you heard the rabbis talk. And my genuine hope is that you'll take something away from here, from this next portion, my few words that can add to that shift for you towards more happiness in your life. So here's my question for you. And we're going to use this thumbs up. Okay. This is like a little dial tone. So this is where you guys are getting involved because we've been sitting for a while. Anybody need to like shake it up a little bit? Okay. So thumbs up is you totally agree. Thumbs down, you don't agree at all. So how strongly do you believe that you know what creates happiness in your life? So let's give it a thumbs up. You know, you kind of know, you're not too sure. All right. A lot of thumbs up. I'm loving that. All right. Okay, good. And maybe there's somebody on here who doesn't feel like they know, and I hope that you'll feel more confidence afterwards. So my second question, back to the thumb, is do you know how to create happiness in your life? So not what creates happiness, but how to create happiness. Thumbs up. Okay. All right. We got a happy bunch here. I like that. I like that. Okay. So what I'm going to do, what I want to use my next few minutes for, and the rabbi and I hadn't actually talked about exactly what he was saying or what I was saying, but what's so interesting is how much overlap there is between the spiritual and I guess the more practical science side of it. And it was interesting, even when we did talk briefly about it, Rabbi, I was sharing something and he's like, well, that is spiritual. So this is what I'm offering you today. My hope is that you'll consider that what you do or what you have doesn't make you happy. What you think does. And how perfectly does that fit with what the rabbi said? So so in this process that I'm going to share with you, it's, kind of two things that we know, that our thoughts are what determine our experience in life. Our thoughts are what determine our experience in life. And this is the beautiful part. We can choose how we want to look at things. Nobody can take that away from us. We have that choice. All right. So let me just be clear when we're talking in this context about what we're talking about with happiness. We are talking about a general state of well-being, sort of a contentment, a longer term sense of self. We are not talking about being giddy all the time. I want to be very clear. There's a lot of pain that comes from people thinking we should be happy all the time. Even back to the founding fathers and the pursuit of happiness, there's so much pain created by thinking that we should be happy all the time. We want to feel the full range of emotions. If we don't have the more negative emotions, how would we even appreciate and find joy in the more positive emotions? So I just want to be really clear that we're just talking more about a general sense of contentment, and know that you are going to have your fluctuations. And there's sometimes we want to feel sad, we want to feel mad. And what I'm talking about here is when you want to feel better about something, how can you do that? So I'm going to start off by sharing something, and it's funny that I'm in such a public forum and sharing this because I've spent 15, 20 years keeping this my deep, dark secret. So I've had several bouts of depression in my adult life, and they have been very disruptive in my life. And what I want to share is that at those times, I wasn't able to access this power of choice of thoughts. there's this concept that some of you may have heard of rumination, and it's just sort of some thoughts spinning in your head. And I was in this negative spin. And for me, a lot of the ways that the depression manifests itself is in my ability to do things, to do my job, to take care of my family. And the doctors would say, they'd try to let me know that, you know what, maybe you're doing a little better than you realize, but I I couldn't I couldn't believe that. It wasn't credible to me. Like, don't you know? You you clearly haven't seen my life. So I was feeling pretty powerless, and um, you know, the meds weren't working, the doctors weren't any help, and it had been going on for months and months. So I just happened to see a talk by Oprah, and she was mentioning that she does a gratitude practice every day. And as successful as she is, it's still something that she feels is important. So I thought, you know what do I have to lose? I'm going to try this gratitude practice. So basically, that first night when I climbed into bed, I just brought a little pad of paper with me, and I just started writing down the things I was grateful for. And this is the critical bit, and this is why I think it worked so well for me. I was listing things that I was 100% credible. In the core of my heart, I believed these things to be true. So I'm going to make my husband blush, but I mean, really, the support that he provided and provides, really carried me through. And so I could be grateful for that. So that's a big thing. But little things, maybe not so little for all of us people who have pets. I have a very ancient dog, and she has a heart condition, and I just was so happy that she was still alive. I found joy in that. I could think about a particular friend and think about that. And so what I want to offer you is that I'm not suggesting that for a clinical diagnosis that gratitude is going to change everything. But what I do want to suggest is that for me, it opened the door to possibility. It let me see another path. And so it broke this cycle. I almost want to think of it as like a little brain hack. I see the rabbi laughing. And maybe it's a knowing laugh, but I feel like it opened the door to seeing more than just the negative. And this is a true story, and it was my personal experience, but literally within a few days, I felt like I was back to myself again. And that was a really transformative moment for me. And I made a commitment to myself at that point that, you know what, I'm not going to be powerless again. I'm going to learn some way to take more control over my wellness. And I studied and I did different things. And I also committed, I felt so lost that there were not the support for me. And I thought, how crazy is this? In this century and all the doctors, I just didn't find the support I needed. And so I was committed to, if I could help myself, that I would share whatever it is that I learned. And so really, I'm getting all excited to say this, but I just from the bottom of my heart hope that somebody here hears something that can kind of open the door just a little bit, crack more towards where you want to be. So, okay, chat. Now back to our thumbs. We're moving things around a little bit here. So what I want you to think about is, so the rest of my talk, we're going to talk about thoughts. And I'm going to share with you a process to help you. So to help you practice being more in control of the thoughts you have. All right. So people who study this, what percentage of your thoughts do you think are negative? All right, back to our dial. 100% of our thoughts are negative. None of our thoughts are negative. 50% of our thoughts are negative. So let's see, where you at, guys? What percent? Get your thumbs up, my friends. I want to see where you're at. Quite a bit around 50. Okay, somebody low, like only, yeah, okay, all right. So what if I told you that 80% of our thoughts are negative? So the vast majority of our thoughts are negative. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to kind of share 3 thoughts with you. I'm going decidedly low tech. I thought rather than sharing some screen with you, I would use the old-fashioned flip chart. All right, so the first thing I'm going to talk about, there's 3 things I'm going to share about your thoughts. So the first one is that 80% of our thoughts are negative. Okay, so why is that? So we have the same brain we did, I don't know, I'm making this up, but thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago. And so it hasn't quite caught up in this last century. So, or couple of centuries. So the brain's way of keeping us safe was to notice danger, notice change, notice things that are different. And back in the caveman days, there were a lot of things that could kill us. We needed to be aware of danger. We needed to be hypersensitive to those things. So here's the problem, that things have changed, and that kind of primitive urge to notice the negative isn't serving us anymore because there's so much less of that actual danger. So I'm just going to ask you this question. So I want to add that, so kind of the thing here, what to take away is that you have to intentionally notice the things that are good. And I just am loving this, that Rabbi, my Hebrew name is Tova. So I'm loving this, good. So okay guys, I want to raise your hand. And I want you to be honest here. When was the last time you jumped up and down and you said, woohoo, I have electricity? Alicia, did you really jump up and down and say you had electricity? I doubt that, but if you did, good for you. But nonetheless, maybe you were at the grocery store and somebody was rude. We carry that around with us all day long. Why? We're giving our power away. And this is that power of choice. So I'm just offering that you can decide to let that ruin your whole day, or you could decide they got a problem. All right. Number 2 is unconscious. So we have thousands of thoughts a day. And again, the brain being efficient, it has to sort of chunk information together. So it takes a whole lot of brain juice to do what we do as humans. So the more things that could be put to our sort of more primitive brain, moved from our thinking brain to more of our unconscious brain, the better, so that we could preserve our brain juice for things that we need to handle in the moment. So because so many of these things are moved to our unconscious, we don't even notice them. So these thoughts are all running around in our background and we stop noticing them. And when we think thoughts over and over again, they become beliefs. And then it really becomes tricky, because once we believe it's true, it's really not easy to believe something else, especially if we don't even realize what's going on. So just the power of habit, I'm just going to share something funny in our household is we rearranged the kitchen a little bit, and our cereal, you know, my kid's whole life, it was on one side of the kitchen. And last week we moved it to the other side of the kitchen. And just the other day I could see my son, you know, reaching for the cereal and oh, no, the wrong place. So it's just, this is just habitual. Our brain just sort of leads us in these directions. So I'm curious, I want you to think, how much do you pay attention to your thoughts? It's not natural. We're not taught to do that. And are you aware of the things that you've come to believe because you think them over and over again? We're so sure that she should know, blah, blah, blah. He never does, blah, blah, blah. They don't appreciate me. I can't do. And I just want to offer that the third idea here is that when we can be open to choosing a different thought, our whole experience of life changes. So I'm going to share another story here. So I lost weight, some of you know, on Weight Watchers a decade ago. And I fell upon a job working at Weight Watchers, and I loved it. It was such a joy to have had to learn something and then be able to share it with other people. So love my job. And then some of you know that in came another boss midway through my working at Weight Watchers, and she did not like me. And I had a whole story about this. She was mean to me. She had it out for me. I could go on, but I would tell anybody who would listen how she made my life miserable. Now, the thing is, our brain is a heat-seeking missile. It wants to prove itself right. So as long as I kept thinking that she makes my life miserable, I kept finding evidence for that, right? Every time she'd send me a mean email, I'd let a colleague know. Every time she didn't respond when I needed her help, I'd let somebody know. I'd tell everybody who would listen. But then in came when I started this training for life coaching, and when I learned this process that I'm sharing with you, that clearly comes from ancient wisdom of the Jewish scholars, but has been put into a simple process that's maybe accessible to more people. I started thinking, why am I giving all my power away? I really like this job. So now I'm thinking about quitting. I get teary when I feel like she's attacked me. And I realized that maybe there was another way of looking at this. And you know what? Maybe she wasn't out to get me. Maybe she has her own problems. Maybe her boss, maybe there's something about her performance that she has to, speak to. And back to the brain, there's this idea of, this bias that I'm talking about. So suddenly, I started noticing other things. Maybe I didn't expect anything from her. So now, if I sent an email and she didn't respond, okay, no big deal. Or when she would ask me to do something, well, you know what? She is the boss. Maybe I'll just do it her way. She'd criticize something. Okay, it wasn't me personally. This was affecting her. So I find this thoroughly hard to believe, but it went from a situation where she was really the bane of my existence, and I told everybody who would listen, to that conflict was removed. And really, it was just by shifting the way I looked at it. So not just looking at it from my vantage point, but also looking at it from her vantage point. And I would go so far as to say, we even like each other now. Who would have thought? Okay, so how does this relate to your life? And this is my last bit here, my friends. So Rabbi and I have done a lot of talking, and I want you to now go inside your own head, maybe even close your eyes, And I want you to think about an experience or a feeling or a situation that you wish could be just a little bit better. And I want to be really clear. We're not looking for the opposite. You might remember my boss, I didn't go from she's the worst boss on earth to she's the best boss on earth. I just went to, well, there's another truth as well. She's got her own problems. So have that thought in mind. What would you like to make just a little better? What would you like to feel just a little better about? And remember, 80% of our thoughts are negative. We've got this confirmation bias. We're looking for the negative. So what's the story you're telling yourself that's kind of maybe taking you from being closer to a loved one, that's keeping you feeling stuck? And then the first step is to notice, right? The second step is to be open. How else could this be interpreted, right? She has her own problems. It's not about me. Now I can start noticing new evidence. And I want to suggest that you give equal airtime to the positive, right? Maybe this person, if it's that kind of a situation, maybe there is a negative component to it. But why don't we give equal airtime to the possible positive side of it as well? And then the third thing is to be intentional. So decide what experience you want in your life, what experience you want with this particular situation. And you might decide you want to be mad or sad or disappointed. But what I'd like to offer you is that you have a choice. If that sort of more negative emotion is getting in the way of you and being as happy and joyous as you can in your life, I just want to suggest that you might choose something else. So here's your homework, my friends. Anybody who would like to give it a try, let's go ahead, give it a try. Write it down. That's a really helpful step, is when you actually write it down. You're getting it out of paper, you're putting it out of your head, putting it on a piece of paper, and then it really helps to see what it is we're thinking. And then I would love to hear from you. If anybody has any story, to let me know how this goes and any shift you might have. So with that, we're gonna, and thank you, I'm really overjoyed to be here today. So thank you for listening.